3 months ago, my life looked perfect from the outside. I was living in a $4.2 million house in California with my wife and our 2 children. Every morning, the sunlight would spill through the wide glass windows of our hilltop home, touching the city below like gold dust. I used to think that was success, the American dream, wrapped neatly in a mortgage and family photos. Today, I'm holding a letter that has ripped that dream to pieces. A letter that tells me everything I believed about my life was built on lies, and the woman who destroyed me may have unknowingly saved me. My name is Fletcher Morrison, 47 years old. Until recently, I was a commercial insurance adjuster in Pasadena, the guy who measured other people's losses, filed the reports, and helped rebuild what had been broken. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and it gave us a life of comfort. I had a wife, Cordelia, beautiful, ambitious, and the person I'd loved since high school. We'd been married 18 years, raised 2 incredible kids, Quinlan, 16, our tall, confident athlete, and Brina, 14, the quiet artist who could sketch the world better than anyone I knew. From the outside, we were a picture of stability. Inside that big, sunlit home, everything seemed perfect, until the cracks began to show. It started about a year and a half ago. Little things at first. Cordelia began taking phone calls outside, whispering on the porch, ending them abruptly when I appeared. Her late nights became more frequent, always client meetings or urgent listings. When I looked into her eyes, I saw something distant, like she was searching for a way out of the life we'd built together. I told myself it was stress, that real estate pressure could wear anyone down. I planned date nights, weekend getaways, anything to bring us back to who we used to be. But every attempt seemed to. Within 6 weeks, my life was gone. My bank accounts were frozen. My professional license was suspended because of the financial misconduct her lawyers had fabricated. I had no home, no income, and my children had been taken from me. There was nowhere left to go but back to Ohio, to the small house my mother left behind when she passed 2 years earlier. So I packed what little I had into my aging Honda Civic and drove 1,200 miles east, leaving behind the ruins of everything I'd built. The drive took 3 long days. Each mile felt like peeling back layers of my life, moving backward through time. By the time I pulled into the cracked driveway of that old ranch-style house in Akron, I felt like a ghost returning to haunt his own childhood. The house looked exactly as I remembered. White siding, black shutters, a small porch just big enough for 2 chairs and a round table. My mother, Wilfred Morrison, had lived here for 35 years. After my father died in a car accident when I was 12, she'd used his small life insurance payout to buy this place. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. I sat in the car for a long while, staring at the porch where she used to drink tea and read her library books every evening. That little house had once been my whole world, a safe, warm bubble where life felt predictable. Now it was all I had left. Stepping inside, I was hit by that familiar scent, lavender soap mixed with old paper. My mother's scent. Her glasses still rested on the side table. A half-read mystery novel sat open on the coffee table, a bookmark frozen mid-story, just like her life had been when she left this world. Every room whispered memories, her kitchen still neat and bright, the old wooden table where she'd helped me build model airplanes, the small bedroom lined with bookshelves and photo albums. In that quiet house, I felt both comforted and, it's strange, the way disasters unfold. They rarely happen all at once. You think you're living through a slow storm, when really, the ground has already given way beneath you. Looking back, I can see the signs now, the subtle, calculated steps that led to my destruction. It began 8 months before the divorce. Cordelia had asked for space. She said she needed time to think. I still believed we could fix things. I was wrong. I remember the morning the papers were served. It was a Tuesday. Ordinary in every way until it wasn't. I was halfway through my coffee when the doorbell rang. A man in a gray suit handed me an envelope and said, "Mr. Morrison, you've been served." Inside were the accusations that would unravel my entire life. She hadn't just filed for divorce. She was demanding everything: full custody of the kids, the house, my retirement savings, and my business assets. The claims inside made my hands tremble. I was labeled a compulsive gambler, an addict who had stolen from clients to fund his habit. There were detailed accounts, fabricated evidence, and signatures that looked exactly like mine. When I confronted Cordelia that evening, she was already packing boxes with a mechanical calm. "Cordelia, what is this?" I asked, holding up the documents. "You know none of this is true." She didn't even look at me at first. Then she said quietly, "The bank statements don't lie, Fletcher. Maybe you're not the man I thought you were." When she finally turned around, her eyes were cold, not angry, just distant, calculated, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed for months. The next 6 weeks were a blur of meetings and disbelief. My lawyer, Robert Chen, reviewed every piece of evidence with me, his brow furrowed deeper each time. "Fletcher," he said, "I've got to ask, is any of this real? Because if there's something you're not telling me, we need to know now." I swore on my children's lives it wasn't. I'd never gambled, never stolen a cent. But the evidence kept piling up. More bank records, signed casino slips, witness statements from neighbors and co-workers claiming I'd become erratic. Someone had gone to great lengths to destroy me, and I couldn't understand who or why. The worst part wasn't the legal battles. It was watching my kids pull away. Quinlan stopped talking to me, barely looking up from his phone when I tried to ask about basketball practice. Brenna still hugged me goodnight, but I could see confusion in her eyes, like she was trying to reconcile two versions of her father. The court-appointed psychologist, Dr. Martinez, treated me like a case study, not a person. "Addiction often hides behind denial, Mr. Morrison," she told me during the evaluation. I wanted to shout that she was wrong, that I was being framed, but all I could do was nod and hope the truth would surface somehow. The final hearing came on a gray November morning. The courtroom felt colder than usual, maybe because I already knew what was coming. Judge Patricia Winters presided, her expression unreadable. Cordelia's lawyer presented their evidence with clinical precision: spreadsheets, witness affidavits, expert testimony on gambling addiction. Every lie was wrapped so neatly in paperwork that even I began to question reality. I sat there, numb, listening as they dismantled the life I'd built. When the judge finally ruled in Cordelia's favor, I didn't even argue. I just felt empty. That was the day my old life ended. But what I didn't realize then was that losing everything was only the beginning. Because buried somewhere in that quiet Ohio house, hidden among my mother's old books and photo albums, was the key to a secret that would change everything I thought I knew. About my wife, my family, and myself. When the final verdict was read, it felt like the world had caved in around me. Cordelia stood tall and composed beside her attorney, while I sat there watching everything I had built crumble into dust. My lawyer did his best, but against the pile of evidence and signed statements, my words sounded hollow. The desperate defense of a man no one believed anymore. He questioned inconsistencies, pointed out gaps in timelines, and tried to convince the court that the so-called evidence against me was circumstantial. It didn't matter. The judge made her ruling with cold precision. Cordelia would have full custody of Quinlan and Brenna, along with the house and most of our assets. I was granted supervised visitation twice a month, on the condition that I complete a gambling addiction program and attend financial counseling. As we left the courthouse, I tried to keep my composure, but Cordelia followed me to the parking lot. There was something cruel in her smile, a glint of victory that twisted my stomach. "You'll never see Quinlan and Brenna again," she said, her voice almost gleeful. "I'm moving them to Portland next month, and you can't afford to stop me." That night, I sat in the middle of my empty apartment, surrounded by silence so heavy it hurt to breathe. A year ago, I'd had a family, a home, and a future. Now all I had was the echo of everything I'd lost. I ended up moving into my late mother's house. It was like walking into a memory frozen in time. Everything was exactly as she had left it. Her coffee mug still by the sink, her glasses folded neatly beside her favorite chair, and her slippers waiting patiently by her bed. It felt as if she'd just stepped out and would return any minute. For weeks, I barely left the couch. Each morning I'd wake up thinking this nightmare would dissolve, that I'd open my eyes to Cordelia beside me and hear the kids getting ready for school. But instead, I saw the water stain on the ceiling and remembered that the life I knew was gone, probably forever. Depression became my shadow. Some days, I couldn't even muster the strength to shower or eat. I'd just lie there staring at the ceiling, wondering what Cordelia was telling the kids. Did they think I'd abandoned them? Did they believe I was a thief and a gambler? The thought hollowed me out. Then one morning, something in me shifted. Maybe it was my mother's voice echoing from memory, reminding me that problems don't solve themselves. Or maybe it was just survival instinct. Either way, I decided if I wanted to see my children again, I needed to fight for them. And that meant money. Something I didn't have. The only thing left to my name was the house. It wasn't in great shape. The kitchen needed refinishing. The bathroom looked like it hadn't been touched in decades, and every wall begged for paint. Still, it was something. I threw myself into repairing it with desperate determination. Days blurred into nights as I stripped wallpaper, sanded floors, and painted walls. It felt good to use my hands again, to do something that didn't involve lawyers or paperwork. Every brushstroke, every nail hammered into wood felt like I was reclaiming a small piece of myself. The basement was the last thing on my list. My mother had used it mostly for storage, and it was packed with decades of memories. Old Christmas boxes, my school projects, photo albums. Going through it was strangely comforting. It reminded me of who I used to be before everything went wrong. That's when I noticed something odd near the furnace. It had been converted to gas years ago, but the concrete floor beneath it looked disturbed. There were fresh scratch marks, dust displaced in strange patterns, even scuff marks on the metal itself. Someone had moved it, and not long ago. That didn't make sense. My mother had been gone for 2 years, and she could barely lift a box in her final months. I couldn't imagine why she'd need to move something that heavy. Still, the evidence was there. It took half a day and every ounce of strength I had to shift the furnace a few feet from the wall. When I finally did, I froze. Embedded in the concrete wall was a small gray safe, old-fashioned, unmarked, and completely hidden from view. I stared at it for a long time, trying to make sense of it. My mother had never mentioned a safe. The combination lock taunted me. Thousands of possible codes. But then, a memory surfaced. Every year on my birthday, March 15th, she'd call me at exactly 7:23 a.m. She said it was the moment I was born. Maybe. Just maybe. I turned the dial. 03-15-77. For a second, nothing happened. Then came the soft click of metal giving way. My heart raced as I pulled the door open. Inside, stacked neatly from top to bottom, were bundles of cash. More money than I had ever seen. Some of the bills were crisp and new. Others yellowed with age. I counted in disbelief. $847,000. Beneath the money were documents, driver's licenses, birth certificates, passports, all with my mother's photo, but under different names. Maria Santos, Isabella Reyes, Catherine Walsh. Each ID showed her at different ages, but always the same eyes. The same face I knew as the quiet librarian who raised me. Except now, that face belonged to multiple people. At the bottom of the safe was an envelope with my name written in her familiar handwriting. My real name. Fletcher. My hands shook as I tore it open. My dearest Fletcher, if you're reading this, it means they finally found you, and I'm no longer here to protect you. My chest tightened. I kept reading. Your real name is Fletcher Castellano. Your father didn't die in a car accident. He was murdered by the Torino crime family in Chicago in 1989. I witnessed it. I was supposed to die with him, but I ran. I took you and entered witness protection under the name Wilfred Morrison. My hands trembled. My father hadn't been a construction worker who died on the job. He'd been killed by the mob. My mother hadn't just been a widow. She'd been a federal witness. The money in this safe is what's left of our government settlement, along with what I saved. But Fletcher, there's something else you must know. 3 years ago, I heard rumors that people were asking about the Castellano family again. I hired private investigators to watch over you. What they discovered broke my heart. I could barely breathe as I read the next lines. Your wife, Cordelia, has been working with people connected to the Torino organization. They found you through her. The false accusations, the court case. It was all designed to destroy you emotionally and financially, to force you back to Ohio. They knew this house might still hold something valuable, evidence, or connections to other witnesses. I felt sick. Everything. The gambling story, the custody loss, my public humiliation. It had all been orchestrated. Cordelia, my wife, had been used by the same people who murdered my father. The letter ended with instructions. Call Marshal Theodore Vance with the U.S. Marshal Service. Tell him you're Vincent Castellano's son. He's been waiting for this call since the day I died. You are stronger than you know, Fletcher. Use the money wisely. Get your children back. And remember, sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads you exactly where you need to be. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the pages, my heart pounding. My entire life, every memory, every loss, had been shaped by secrets I never knew existed. When I finally picked up the phone and dialed the number, a gruff voice answered on the second ring. Vance. Marshal Vance. I said quietly. This is Fletcher Morrison, but I think my real name is Fletcher Castellano. There was a long silence before he replied. Son, I've been waiting for this call since your mother died. Where are you? 4 hours later, he was at my door, tall, gray-haired, and carrying the kind of weariness that only comes from decades of chasing evil. He brought 2 other agents, and together they went through every inch of the safe, cataloging evidence and recording statements. Your mother was one of the bravest people I ever met, Vance told me later that night. She knew someday this might happen. She meant, "Be sure you'd be ready." Over coffee, he explained the rest. The Torino family had never stopped hunting witnesses from my father's trial. Over the years, they'd changed tactics. No more public killings. Instead, they ruined lives quietly, sabotaging reputations, manipulating relationships, destroying finances. They'd done it to others before me. 6 witnesses over 15 years. Cordelia had been their way in. She was approached under the guise of a real estate client, slowly drawn into their web until she became a pawn. But they hadn't expected my mother's death to trigger a silent federal watch. For 2 years, the Marshal Service had kept the house under quiet surveillance, waiting to see who would come looking. When I returned, the trap was already set. The next morning, Vance got the call. Cordelia had been arrested in Portland, along with 3 men tied to the Torino network. She had no idea who they truly were. They'd fed her lies about me. Fake evidence, counterfeit documents, everything designed to turn her against me. She's agreed to testify, Vance told me. Turns out she's as much a victim as you. The hardest thing I ever did was call my kids. Quinlan sounded so small on the phone. Dad, is it true? Are you a gambler? No, buddy, I said softly. None of it was true. Some bad people hurt our family, but it's over now. We're going to be okay. It took 6 months to untangle the mess. With Cordelia's testimony and my mother's files, the truth came out. The forged documents were exposed, my name was cleared, and my professional license was reinstated. Cordelia and I will never be what we once were. Too much was broken. But we're learning to co-parent, to rebuild trust for the sake of our children. Therapy helps. The kids are healing too. Quinlan's back on the basketball team, and Brenna's art has become brighter, full of color and hope. The house sold for enough to buy a modest place back in California and start college funds for both of them. Life isn't perfect. It probably never will be. But for the first time in years, it feels real. I think of my mother every day. She saved me twice. Once as a child and once long after she was gone. Her courage gave me the chance to reclaim my life. The Torino case goes to trial next year, and I'll be on the witness stand, just like she was decades ago. Only this time, I won't be running afterward. This time, I'll finish what she started. Sometimes, the worst moments in our lives lead us exactly where we're meant to be. My mother always knew that. Even in death, she found a way to protect her son.